masters, masters, masters of change.
Hello there. Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Cuneo, and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University, and I'm here with my good friend Charlie Hogg. Charlie is the director of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, and we're having together a series of spiritual discussions. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Kim. Great to be back.
Charlie, we have been really getting into karma. You know, people say, what are you into in life? I think we could say today we're really into karma. Now, I wanted to then put karma in a larger context, if we could, and to think about one thing in particular, which is karma yoga. But I wanted to start by asking you a couple of general questions. First of all, what is yoga?
Yoga means union or connection. And really it's ultimately, Kim, the union of I, the soul, with God, the Supreme Soul. So it's this deep union, this deep absorption that really begins to transform me.
Is this something that can happen, in an instant, or does it take a lifetime, or both?
It's like any craft in life. You're a musician, and I'm sure the first time you picked up an instrument, you got so much pleasure from it. But as you played more and more, you began to understand the possibilities of the music and the instrument. It's a bit the same with yoga. When I first started, I instantly had experiences, but as I've continued, you sort of become the master in the sense you know how to create spiritual experience. And really, spiritual experience is the great motivation. If I sit and try hard to meditate and nothing happens, I will lose enthusiasm. But I often say that when I have the art of becoming a bodiless soul, there's almost a law that the more you detach from your body and the image of your body, the more you open the door to the realms of spiritual experience, and that motivates you. For me, I really look forward to waking up. I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I have 45 minutes meditation. I love it. I really love it because it's like my whole mind's awash with these flavors of spirituality. And that really, it touches me incredibly deeply.
Charlie, when you said this, I should probably get out more, but I had butterflies in my stomach when you said it. Because it's so simple and it's so cheap. It costs nothing, right?
Yeah.
What you're saying is that we have the potential to fall in love every morning.
Yeah.
Isn't this an incredible thing?
It really is, and the incredible thing is that it isn't difficult, but we can often have a mental barrier that, because meditation in a sense is taking truths and converting them into feelings, so converting the thoughts into feelings. And sometimes, intellectually we revise the truths, we like the truths, they give me a little bit of power, but to convert it into the experience, that is really what is the spiritual journey. Taking the truth of the self, the truth of God, and converting it into the feelings of peace and love inside of me. And I think that takes patience. It's probably like the musician who can, hold the instrument on day one, but to convert it into absolutely exquisite music can take a lifetime sometimes.
Yes, funnily enough, Charlie, we used to have a chart in our School of Music, which would be the hours that someone can spend practicing. There is a myth that it takes 10,000 hours to make a musician, but we've looked at the research. We think it actually takes 40,000 hours to make a passable musician at a high level.
Really?
And it's a very profound thing, but to be a master of ourself, that seems to be about 1,000,000 times harder than being a musician. So it's going to take time, isn't it?
It is. And that's why I think the best outlook, Kim, is to have a long-term, that this becomes a part of my life. It's not just a hobby I'm doing or something, it's who I am. I'm fulfilling my responsibilities, but I'm constantly learning, observing, paying attention, connecting, and transforming. Actually, I think it makes life so much more enjoyable. Because, it takes the boredom out of life because I'm constantly learning about myself. And if, I'm meeting somebody and there was a little bit of a reaction, you just begin to reflect, now what was it in me that sort of reacted that little bit? And it may have only been just a little bit. What do I need to learn about myself? And so that constant self-awareness, I think, is really so enjoyable. This path is so enjoyable. And in the long term, it's a self-education that takes you to such a beautiful place.
Charlie, I understand that it's really quite beautiful. I want to ask a provocative question, so I'm going to pretend to be someone else. Hello there, Charlie. And my new persona says, look, I'm a busy man. I've got things to do. I have an important job. I have a family to feed, and actually I want to provide for my children's education. I want them to have a house. So I'm happy to take on this spiritual thing, but how can I keep working as hard as I want to work?
You weren't that convincing, Kim. You're still your ever-sweet self. But this brings up such a fascinating subject, because historically we've divided the spiritual practice with my mainstream life.
Yes, this is
so good. And that's a deep conflict that a lot of people have. I yearn to be spiritual, but hey, I've got to earn $1 for my kids and my family. And so there's this constant conflict. What the Brahma Kumaris have taught me is to be a karma yogi. In other words, let the two parts of your life merge into one. And so you carry your yoga, your meditation, your connection, your relationship with God into the meetings, into the workplaces, into your responsibilities. It colors everything, and it absolutely enriches each part of your life. And so you're bringing your spirituality into life. And I often think meditation is for life. Sometimes people have the idea, they've said to me, oh, do you just go and sit on a mountaintop and contemplate your navel? You know how sometimes people say it. And I say, no, it's actually helping you really deal with all the things of life. And if you can wake in the morning, create a peaceful state of mind, and then negotiate the whole day maintaining that mind, then you've absorbed a lot of truth and wisdom in your life. Along the way, you're going to blow it many times. You're going to lose your peace. But when you bring the two parts of your life together, that is a wonderful achievement. That is a karma yogi, a yogi who brings the experience of meditation into action.
This is like, people talk about the term multitasking at work.
Yeah.
This seems to me the ultimate multitasking.
It is.
Because, multitasking is supposed to be sending an email and preparing for your next meeting or something. But really, multitasking, as you describe it, is remembering I am a soul, is remembering that my primary relationship, no matter who I'm meeting and who I'm dealing with, is with God and myself, and that I have to hold those values and see the beauty of the other, even as I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Do you think this is really possible, Charlie?
It's totally possible, Kim. It definitely takes attention because, you've got two lenses. One is your soul conscious lens and the other is the body conscious lens. So when you look through the body conscious lens, you see something's difficult, something's challenging, but you just have that 30 seconds or minute of awareness, and you put on a new lens once again, and so you start to read life differently. And so you're carrying your awareness into your practical life. And it does take attention, it does take practice, but I think when we start to carry my spirituality into my family life and my working life, it's like I bring who I really am into my life. Because sometimes I think we live a bit of a myth, a facade. We're trying to be somebody. We almost try to create a persona out there that I think the world will like. But when I'm really a karma yogi, I express my intrinsic self, and that's the most beautiful part of me. I really express who I am.
Charlie, that's such an interesting idea, because really you're saying that it is possible to bring these two sides of ourselves together, and of course we all have that aspiration. So I've got two questions for you, right? What happens when we don't like the person or the situation? And then the harder one, I think, what happens when we really like the person or the situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like we're pulled out of our self-respect, and I start to, put someone on a pedestal, I'm really attracted to them, or I put them down or something. So when I'm in self-respect, I have a sort of an objective vision, I see reality. But when I've lost my self-respect, and I start to get very attracted to somebody or very repulsed by somebody else, it's like I'm pulled out of my equanimity and I'm not seeing reality at that time. That's why a karma yogi sort of, through all the ups and downs of the day, remains sort of in that right state of mind, remains quite objective.
Charlie, I think I'm getting it now, but I thought of one other thing that can stop us, so we can have this noble ambition. Yes, I'm going to be a karma yogi. I'll meditate in the morning, I'll go to work, and I'll be focused on this sort of loving benevolence, for want of a better term. I mean, that all sounds pretty good. But then I get to this stage, I've put out and I've put out and I've put out and I've been my best, and I seem to be getting nothing back from anyone else. It's like I'm planting the seeds, I'm watering the garden, and really it looks exactly the same a month later or 2 months later. What do I do when I'm not seeing the fruits of my actions?
Kim, how deep is the program to seek validation externally? It's so deep. But actually the whole of Karma Yoga is a reverse from how normally life is. Normally in life you do an action to get a desire fulfilled, to get a validation. Here we sit in meditation where our desires are fulfilled with love. We feel validated in my relationship. So I step into action without a big hook at the other end, a desire for you to love me, respect me, say, oh, you're the best, you're the greatest. And so that gives me a lot of power, actually, when I'm not really attached to the outcomes of how things work out. It really, and that's really the state of a karma yogi. A karma yogi does the action because they're doing it because they love God. Then whatever is the result, they're not so affected by. They remain in that state of equanimity when there's praise or defamation, respect or disrespect, cooperation or lack of cooperation. They can remain quite constant. Now all these things, as we know, take practice, but they're all absolutely possible. And I think that really what I've learned from the Brahma Kumaris is that spiritual life is for every part of your life. Bring your truth and your spirituality into every moment of your day, and it's a wonderful life. It can be a beautiful life.
Charlie, on behalf of Masters of Change, I'd like to present you with the Masters of Change Yogi badge, because there should be a badge for this, because it seems like this is one of the biggest mistakes we make as a whole society, is we think I'm doing the right thing, but really we're still exerting control.
Yeah.
We're projecting our vision of what a good world is onto others.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is so radical, so truthful, but so sweet. If I'm to give something, I must give it completely free of obligation. Otherwise, I'm not truly giving.
Yeah. That's beautiful how you just described it, Kim, because we're such control freaks at heart, aren't we? The less we can control here, we want to control outcomes there. The Karma Yogi controls in here, has worked it out in here, and so is really open to any outcomes and allows people to be who they are and really suspends expectations of how you should behave to suit me. Which is a very selfish thing when you think about it, that often we become disappointed in people because they don't behave according to my rules. They're not behaving according to what I think is appropriate behaviour. But actually the Karma Yogi, because they're sort of detached and loving, that detached word's coming back again, they're full already. So what happens out there is not influencing them so much. It is a high stage, but it's absolutely possible. And I think as you started this off, I feel that we're coming to a point in the world now, a regular spiritual practice is essential to sort of nurture and sustain myself throughout all the challenges that come to us every single day.
Charlie, I'm getting it. I want to now think about the different types of work we do, because it's very easy when we have these discussions to think about work in a job with a boss and colleagues. But many of us will actually live at home and work at home. And, just cooking. I even say the word just with a huge apology, because for anyone who is cooking for family, what an act of incredible service that is to sustain other people's lives through the preparation of food. I'd like to ask you to give us a few tips on how we can really enjoy, as karma yogis, this process of cooking for others.
Kim, in the Brahma Kumaris, food is a huge way of serving others spiritually. Because when we cook, we often try to remember God, because we know those vibrations will influence the food. And, sometimes I know some parents have so much love for their children, but some of the children are in the teenage phase and they're not really interested. Probably the most powerful way of supporting your kids is through food. Is cooking them food that's just so rich in those vibrations. So we cook in that consciousness and we eat in that consciousness. So whatever I take into my body, the vibrations of it do influence my thinking. And really, if someone is going through a hard time, they're fluctuating. If you cook with such a stable mind of peace and love and connection with God, it can positively support them. This is the power of the mind and the power of spiritual vibrations and how they can influence others. So, cooking is a huge cooperation and support, and I feel can really change a whole atmosphere in a household.
And really, you're giving us a larger sense of what a recipe is if we're cooking, because we might have, flour and water, but we have a pinch of salt, and then we have a tablespoon of love, and then maybe 10 tablespoons of love of God. And we stir that into the food. And really, that's a teaching for the whole of life. But maybe it's a bit easier to see in food because we heat it up and it becomes delicious. So I wanted to then say, because I've seen you eat and enjoyed that process with you many times, if you're receiving that beautiful food, what's a nice way to take that in? And how would you do that?
I think before I eat, I like to remember God and just appreciate, that gratitude. I love the feelings of gratitude that I have this pure food, and this pure food is full of good vibrations. So the food nourishes the body, the vibrations nourish the soul. So it's a double-powered food in a way which we're eating. And really, I would say that the vibrations have a massive effect that we can't underestimate. And Kim, how sometimes people go out into a restaurant or something and they go to sleep and they have all sorts of funny dreams. Often it's because of the vibrations in the food. We don't know who's really cooked that food or what set of consciousness. When I was a student, I worked in a few kitchens. There was some pretty angry chefs around, That's not a judgment, it's just the poor souls were going through their own life story. And so the vibrations really, everything in life is subtle. The soul is subtle, vibrations are subtle. And what we're talking about is creating a life where I meditate in the morning, I eat pure food, I eat food with good vibrations. It's sort of like I'm creating a life which is supporting me moving forward to my spiritual destination.
Yes, Charlie, you've described it so well with food, but of course we could say from food we go to all aspects of life. So if we keep this consciousness of cooking with love, everything that we make in the world can be done with love. Really, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that it's possible to transform every single action we can ever undertake, whether it is sending an email, whether it is digging a hole, whether it is, helping an elderly person into bed. Every action can be spiritual if we allow it to be.
Absolutely, Kim. And that means, and I love it, it's once again the marriage of who you are spiritually with your practical life. Some people feel, I want to be spiritual, but I've got to scrub the floors and chop the vegetables and put the elderly patient, shower them. And we get sort of affected by how mundane it is. But actually, the most mundane of actions can become so special when they're done with spirituality. I've seen some people do the most simple actions of washing pots and stuff, but they do it, you can feel there's a lovely feeling, and so they make a mundane action into a divine action by the consciousness they do it in.
Charlie, I'd like you to do what you do best, which is to transform the mundane into the divine for us.
Let me reflect on my daily timetable. And begin to realize that the way I begin the day will influence each part of my life. If I commit to myself to wake, sit quietly, reflect on who I am as the soul, enjoy a deep, loving union with my beloved, I take myself into my highest consciousness. And then I step into the day, and all these thoughts are influencing my vision, how I see others through my eyes, my speech, what I say to others, my behavior, my actions, even my reactions to difficult situations. So what I begin to learn is to apply my spirituality to the reality of life situations. Rather than feel a victim of things that go wrong or things that are difficult or challenging people, I keep practicing a different way, the spiritual way. Sometimes I may not be successful, and that's okay. Don't feel hopeless, don't give up, but keep trying to express the love I experience from God through each part of my life. The more I give love, automatically life will fill my heart with true love. And I begin to realize that this connection with God helps me manage each part of my life. And I really become the karma yogi, the yogi in action, the one who remembers God in each part of my day. And when I finish my day, let me briefly reflect on the day, the things that worked, but what I can learn for the future. And then put a full stop. Do not carry the things of yesterday into today. A karma yogi is a person who brings my spirituality into my daily life. Om Shanti.
Dear friends, we've had a really beautiful session today where we've thought about what it is to be a yogi, what it is to be a human who is a soul at the same time, and what it is to do work in a mindful spiritual state. Charlie has told us this great truth that we, all of us, every single person in this planet has the capability of doing their so-called tasks of life in a spiritual state, and that this, although it takes a lifetime, can be mastered. And when we get it right, our life will be so transformed. So it gives us a lot of hope, Charlie, this feeling that from today or tomorrow, we can engage in this process of meditation and reflection by sustaining this primary relationship with God. We can forgive ourselves in our own life and our little shortcomings, and we can start to transform the world around us. What a beautiful story. It should be on the front page of every newspaper, but it's on my heart. Thank you again, Charlie.
Thanks again, Kim. Bye.